I asked Chad, I'm like, is it like 1960 to you every Sunday? Because he talked about roast burning in the oven. I'm like, when's the last time somebody cooked a roast on a Sunday morning? That don't happen anymore. My grandma used to do that. Okay. So you need to stay up to date with stuff that's happening. We did reschedule the IF conference, and it's back open for registration. So if you're like, I couldn't make it on that weekend, now it's on October 25th and 26th, which is coming up quickly. And so you can sign up on the app and get on there and take care of that. So make sure that you're doing that. We are talking about the abundant life. Everything we do around here is about growing deeper. That's always kind of what we're doing. But lately, we've been focusing on this year, the abundant life, growing deeper in the abundant life. And what does that mean? And in this series, we're looking at what does it look like to have the abundant life through the eyes of wisdom. That we went through Philippians and looked at the abundant life and joy. We've looked at so many things. And now we want to just look at how can wisdom be that thing that helps us have an abundant life. We defined wisdom a couple of weeks ago by saying that wisdom is living in God's world, God's way. If you want to know what a wise life is like, is living in God's world, God's way, doing what He tells us to do. And the Scripture is the answer for that. It's where we find the things that we need to know, and it's where we find wisdom, specifically the book of Proverbs. It's called the wisdom literature. So 2 weeks ago, we looked at that wisdom is a source of abundant life, and then last week we looked at what does the Proverbs and what is the wise life in sex and sexuality and marriage. And that was fun. And whenever I ask people what they remember most, they're like, you said God said sex is great. And I'm like, I did say that, but that's all anybody remembers, that sex is great. And I did say that, and it is. It's awesome. So you need to come to church more often and hear me say stupid stuff that, gets me in trouble. But it is. All right, so moving on. We are now talking about something a little bit more easier to talk about, friendships. Today we're talking about friendships. But I felt like we can't really talk about friendships without talking about this other topic. I feel like the two are so intimately connected that we have to start here and kind of get us all on the same page. And that topic is the topic of responsibility, specifically irresponsibility. Irresponsibility. And I started thinking about what are the things that when I see it happen, I'm like, that's an irresponsible person. The moment I see it, I'm like, that's an irresponsible person. Now, I don't know what that is for you. For me, I made a list. I thought I was going to have 2 or 3. I got 9, okay? They just kept coming as I'm looking through. So the first thing is if I pull up in the Walmart parking lot and I see a shopping cart in the middle of a parking space, I'm like, that's an irresponsible person. I don't want them running my life. Like, who does that? Who puts a shopping cart right in the middle of a parking space? And you're like, I do that. I'm so sorry. I'm call you out, okay? But listen, to me, I'm like, what? They literally have these gates for them. And they even tell you which way to put them in. They got these nice little blue things that block you going around. Like, I love it. I love order. And to me, I'm like, man, who does that? Here, let me see. Okay, here's one. You go into Walmart. You made it through the shopping cart in your spot scenario, and you get inside the store. And you're in the middle of the aisles, right? Like where the food is, you're not supposed to buy, right? You're supposed to shop the perimeter, not the aisles. But let's say you're in the aisle and you see a box of turkey meat right next to the rice. And you're like, okay, who did that? Like who thought this is where this goes? And because what's going to happen is they take that turkey meat and they go put it back in the fridge after it's been warm for a good amount of time. And then you open it up and like, oh, I can't eat this. And how did this go bad? Because somebody put it in the aisle and didn't put it back. Like, it just screams irresponsible to me. Another one is, I know what you're thinking. You're like, this is the most judgmental person I've ever met in my life. I'm not even done. When you get on an escalator, okay, if you're going to ride the escalator, totally fine. You can ride the escalator, but ride the escalator on the right side of the escalator. Don't ride on the left. The left is for passing people. This is for people who are in a hurry, who like to ride at double speed up a flight of stairs. Don't stand on the left side of the escalator. You're in my way. The other one, those ones that are flat, they call them people movers, like you go to the airport. Man, if you're going to stand and ride that thing, cool. But do it on the right side because I am going to be like Naruto running down that thing as fast as I can to see how quickly I can go by people. Same thing with the highway, make sure you're on the right-hand side of the road. Don't be slow on the left-hand side of the road. What else did I write down? Leaving your trash can down at the road all week long. I'm like, are you kidding me? Pull it up to the house. It's where it belongs. Keep it up to the house. Take out your trash that way. Okay, when someone lets their dog do their business in my yard and don't clean it up, I'm like, that is a true sign of irresponsible behavior. Let's see, not changing the toilet paper, putting the toilet paper on the wrong way. Anybody? No? Y'all don't care? Okay. what I have noticed is that everyone does it the godly way, the Jesus way, which is with the paper going down the wall. It's supposed to go behind it like a mullet, okay? The other way is where it goes off the front end like bangs, it goes off this way. The people who do it the Jesus way, which is down the backside, are the people who don't own cats, which is why they're Jesus people. Because if you have a cat, you can't have it this way because the cat does what cats do, and so you got to have it the other way. Not changing only paper. And then here's the one that, if you were to ask my kids, what is the one for your dad, they would tell you this. Do not ever chew with your mouth open in front of my dad. He'll never eat with you again. Ever. So if you're like, we only had one lunch. Now you know why. I'm just saying, like, if you ate, you got to close your mouth when you chew. Like, there's just a thing there. I don't know. It's actually a word. It's like misophonia or something. Like, I have that. I can't stand mouth noises. The other day, my wife sent a video to us of her, like a close-up video of her taking a bite of something. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We need 6 hours away from each other for now. Like, I need some time to get over what you just sent me. What is it for you? What is the thing that just screams irresponsibility for you when you see it? I mean, you probably all have something. He's like, when people do this, I know their life is not in order. Who has an orderly life and does this, whatever that is? And the truth is, we're all irresponsible. Every one of us have been irresponsible. Every one of us will be irresponsible again. But there's a few things we need to know about responsibility. So I'm going to throw up this question first. Am I taking responsibility for my life? Not am I a responsible person. That's a totally different question. Because if I were to ask that, everyone in the room would be like, yeah, of course, I'm a responsible person. And what you would do is think about that one area of your life you've got all squared away. Okay, listen, I am a responsible person when it comes to work, when it comes to food, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to my relationship. You'll find that one thing that you say, I'm a responsible person. So that's not what I'm asking. Are you taking responsibility for your entire life? Because what ends up happening if you're not taking responsibility for your life is someone else has to come along behind you and clean up your irresponsibility. And it's not fun when you're the one that has to clean up your responsibility. And by the way, this applies to everyone at all stages. So if it's a child and the child is playing with toys in a room and they leave the toy in the room and move on to something else, that's being irresponsible. And now it's the responsibility of someone else to come along and clean up their mess. Well, the same is true when you're an adult. If you're not being responsible, all of a sudden somebody else has to come along and raise your kid because you weren't responsible. Someone else has to come along and love your wife better than you because you couldn't do it. Whenever we are irresponsible, someone else has to take up the slack of our irresponsibility. So here's the second question. Who will you expect to rescue you when your irresponsibility catches up with you? If we were really honest, we would go ahead and address this. If we were really honest, we know the bad decisions that we're going to make. Every one of us have decided to make those bad decisions. In fact, we talked ourselves into all of those bad decisions. And you have that little salesman in your head that tells you what to do and when to do. And you listen to that little salesman all the time and salesperson. And they tell you what to do, when to do, how to do it. And then you just go along with whatever they say up here. And I do too. And if we're really honest, we should be able to look at our spouse and say, okay, listen, here's the deal. I'm about to make 3 really bad decisions in a row, and I'm going to need you to take up the slack for what I'm about to do. I'm going to have an affair. I'm going to spend a whole lot of money we don't have. And I'm telling you ahead of time so that you know I'm depending on you to bail us out of this. That would be the mature thing to do. The really mature thing would be to not do it at all. But if we're going to do it, let's give someone who we're already expecting to take up the slack for, let's give them a heads up. Let's at least give them a heads up. I'm about to treat you like garbage for a minute, and I need you to just be okay with it and forgive me even after I'm all done with that. And it's kind of how we behave. Like, we just expect things from people around us. And so this is why this concept of responsibility and friendship goes hand in hand. You have to be friends. You have to be best friends with your spouse. You have to be. I don't know how you can make it if you're not. They have to know every little thing about you. They need to know all the details. Because if they don't, they're going to find out one day. And when they do, whatever happened before then is going to determine whether they stick around or not. There should not be another best friend that is more of a best friend than your spouse. You can have other best friends, but they better not be better. And you better not be telling that other person stuff about your spouse that your spouse doesn't already know. There has to be a friendship. And there has to be people that we put into our lives that we go the last 10% with, true friends. And we should be that friend for other people as well. I don't mean that's my buddy, whatever. I'm talking about like they know you really, really well. They know that last bit that you don't really share with too many people. We all need people like that. We all need people in our lives that are friends like that. Few things about irresponsibility. Just put this in your pocket just so you can go ahead and remember these as you go on. Irresponsible people often surround themselves with irresponsible people. Why do they do that? Why does irresponsible... When you were irresponsible, remember when you were 15, remember that time? That 16, remember that? You were surrounding yourself with irresponsible people, just like me, and I did that too. Why do we surround ourselves with irresponsible people? Because when we go to them and we say, listen, my life is falling apart, I don't understand, I got this and this and this, irresponsible people are going to tell you that it's everyone else's fault but yours. They're going to be like, oh, that's not your fault, it's because of them, it's because of they, it's because of he, it's because of she. If they wouldn't have, if she wouldn't have, then you would be fine. A responsible person will look you in the eye and say, you did that to yourself. You're in this position because you caused it. You made those decisions, and that's why you're there. That's what a responsible, mature person would do for you. But irresponsible people don't surround themselves with responsible people who's willing to do that. They surround themselves with irresponsible people who will justify their terrible actions, their irresponsible actions. I do this. You do this too. So we already come into this with an expectation. I'll pass this on too. Taking responsibility for your life is God's will for your life. If you've struggled with, I don't know what God's will is for me, this is a good place to start. God's will for you is to take responsibility for your actions. Thought, word, deed, motive, and action. Thought, word, deed, motive, and action. If you were to hand those all over to your Heavenly Father and surrender them to His will, that is His first will for your life. That's a great place to start. Being and taking responsibility for your life is God's will for your life. And you need people to do this. You need to surround yourself with people to help you do this. Taking responsibility for your life is good for you and good for those around you. You were created, Bible tells us, we were all created in God's image. God, the God of the Scriptures, is a triune God, a Trinity. He's God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we are created in His image, which means we are created with responsibility. It means we're created for responsibility. And it also means we were created for community. He's a Trinitarian God. And in the beauty, in the community of the three of them in this divine dance that we can't fully understand, they surrender to and love and take care of and provide community for one another in a way that makes them completely, they don't need anyone or anything else because everything that they need is found in that Trinitarian relationship. And there's community there, and you were created for community. And in that friendship, in community, is where you find this ability to be able to become responsible, for people to hold you responsible to your actions and help you to become the best version of yourself, the version that Christ would want you to be. So we need to be around people that will help us be responsible. And people need you to do the exact same thing. Here's another concept. Put it in your back pocket. It's just true. Being irresponsible makes you smaller and smaller over time. Being irresponsible shrinks you. You get smaller and smaller every time you make an irresponsible decision. I'll prove this by showing the opposite. You ever watch, we're in a political season, so maybe you watch a debate or you watch a conversation, and one person gets called out for something that they said or something that they did in the past. And you've got two reactions. You've got the reaction of, well, and they justify it with some ridiculous response. Or the very rare unicorn, they say, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. I was completely wrong, and I apologize to everyone that it offended. I should never have done that, and I will never do it again. When someone does that, do they get bigger or smaller in your eyes? They get bigger. You're like, I can't believe it. He just owned up. She just owned up. Like, that is crazy. And every time that we go the opposite and we decide to be irresponsible, that person gets a little bit smaller, almost literally. Because what you end up doing is we're being irresponsible in our walk, in our life, and we're doing things and drinking things and taking things and treating people wrongly, and we're being irresponsible. We're leaving little pieces of ourselves behind that someone else has to come behind and clean up. And we're getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And this is why in a marriage, whenever you behave irresponsibly in a marriage, the relationship shrinks. And it's very difficult to earn the trust back when everyone gets back to life size, to trust size, to I can believe you size, to I know that you want what's best for me size. Because once you've lived a marriage for you and you've only really cared about you, it's really difficult for that person to see you in any other light than a very small, selfish light. And so being irresponsible makes you smaller over time. John 10:10 has been our verse as we've talked about this, abundant life. And it says the thief, and he doesn't specify, he calls him the enemy. It can be Satan, it can be someone in your life, it could be you, you could be your own thief, your own enemy, the person robbing you, stealing from you, killing things in your life, destroying things in your life. The thief comes only to steal, to kill, and kill and to destroy. I have come, Jesus says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full, or have it abundantly. Now, I want to have abundant friendships and full friendships, and I know that you do too. And so we have to be aware of these things as they come into our own life and as they creep into the people that are around us. And when should we draw them in closer? When should we set up some boundaries and back away from that friend? Is there a time when I need to just kind of push back? And are there times when I need to lean in? And the good thing is, Book of Proverbs kind of talks about this. And I've decided to use 5 things that we should avoid and 5 things that we should become. I don't do lists. It's not really my thing. However, when you're going through the book of Proverbs and you're looking at a topic, there are 100 things I could show you about how to avoid when it comes to being friends. And then I could show you 100 things. We have to stop somewhere. So I just decided 5 is a good number. So we're going to show 5 things that we should avoid and 5 things that we should become when it comes to friends and friendship. Now, I want to kind of throw a little caveat out there. There are going to be people in your life that you're there for them, and you're going to kind of be their friend, but you're not really, you haven't really drawn them in close enough to you. They're closer to you than you are to them. And that happens, and it's okay. But those people that you give everything to, that you tell everything to, those are the people we need to be very careful about who they are in our circle. And the Proverbs gives us some guidelines there. So what are some people that we should avoid, or some situations we should avoid when it comes to that inner circle? We all need them. We all need an inner circle of friends. But what should they look like? What shouldn't they look like? What kind of friend should I be? What kind of friend shouldn't I be? So we're going to talk about a few things to avoid. So we'll just jump in here. One of the things to avoid is the wicked or the evil person. The wicked or the evil person. This is found in Proverbs 4:14 and 15. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Now, the key thing here is not really to focus on this too much, because we automatically go to something drastic. Okay, more than likely you didn't have a buddy, call you up and be like, "Hey, let's go murder today." Okay, that's probably not what you're going to experience. But what you are going to experience is there are people in your life that are walking a path, and you know the path they're walking, and you know that it is not a pure, clean, amazing, God-fearing, doing what's best for my family path. And the whole purpose of this is to teach you, do not even set foot on that path. Because before you know it, you're a half a mile down that path. And it gets even harder to get off that path, because now you're emotionally invested in whoever it is. And maybe you got an investment in the situation. And the warning here of Solomon is, do not even put your foot on that path. You have enough wisdom and insight to see where it's leading. Don't even put your foot on there. He continues by saying, avoid it. Avoid it, completely avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your own way. Don't walk down that path. Now, does that mean that you can't be a friend on the sidelines of that person? Certainly you can. And from a distance, you can say to them, I can't go down that road with you, but I'm here for you. I love you, but I can't walk with you on the path that you're walking. You're going somewhere I refuse to follow, and that's okay. You don't have to give yourself over to everybody and anybody that shows you the least bit of attention and affection. We have to be careful of who our friends are. So don't need to go down the path of the wicked or the evil. So one thing to avoid the wicked or evil. Those that are not seeking to honor God. Those who are walking a path that you know where that path leads, and you can't even put a foot on it. You might even say, you know what? I think I can become an influence in their life. So I'm going to walk with them for just a little while, and maybe I can convince them to come over and start trusting in Jesus. Maybe what I got will cause them to come over. If you do that, then you better know for sure that it was Jesus leading you in that direction. Because more often than not, it's the other way around. They will end up dragging you down a path, and then all of a sudden you're 6 months in, you're a year in, and you're like, how did I get myself into this mess? A perfect example of this, see it all the time, is when two people want to get into a relationship, and one of them is a Christian and one of them isn't. And the Christian says, I know, I mean, I love the way he looks. I love the way she smells. I want to hang out with them. They're funny. You know, they drive a nice car. They got a good house. They got a good job. And so I'm going to see where this goes. Oh, well, are they saved? Nah, but that's okay. I'm going to hang out with them and I'll win them over. They'll become a Christian because of my influence in their life. Does it happen? Yeah, but not as often as you think it does. And I've been in this world a long time. And I used to use this illustration when I spoke to youth. I would put a chair up on the stage, and I would have one person down on the ground and the other person in the chair. And the person in the chair is the lost person. Is the saved person. The person on the ground is the lost person. And I would say, okay, you guys are in a relationship. Okay, you're saved, you're lost. Now, I want you, saved person, to pull them up. And they try and they can't pull them up, but it's really easy for the lost person to pull them right back down. And so, if you're in a relationship, this needs to be a key component. Don't go down that path. And don't think that God puts you in their life to move them over to His side. I don't know why we do this. We love to ascribe things to God that He didn't ever tell us to do. And you know when we start saying things like that? Usually it's about the time that the temperature increases in the relationship and sex is on the table. Now all of a sudden, God has called me to be the one to win them to Jesus. But if we'll back off and not let that part enter the equation, all of a sudden the light comes on and we're able to make wiser decisions about how far down this road we should go with somebody. And so be very careful about who you're spending your time with and who it is you're introducing into a relationship with. I tell people all the time, if you're single and you're trying to find the one, by the way, there isn't a one. There are many ones. There are lots of people that you can have a beautiful, God-centered relationship with. There's not a one. Don't believe that lie. But the goal is you run as fast as you can and as true as you can towards Jesus. And all of a sudden you'll look over and somebody will be keeping up with you. And when you see that person, introduce yourself. But don't think you need to go back to where they are and drag them up to where you are. It rarely ever happens that way. So be careful of the path that you're on. Avoid the wicked or the evil, or even the one who isn't seeking out God at all. All right, moving on. The next thing to avoid is the fool. Stay away from a fool, for you will not find knowledge on their lips. We have all been the fool. We have all said things, done things. We've all been things that we shouldn't have been. He keeps going. This is another one. It's Proverbs 13:20. Walk with the wise and become wise. A companion of fools suffers harm. Remember that thing you did when you were 15 and you suffered harm? Were you with a bunch of wise people? No, neither was I. I was with a bunch of fools, acting like fools. And then we got, what's that phrase? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. We won all the stupid prizes because we played stupid games. And this goes into your adult life. It's not just when you're a kid. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. Anyone ever met someone like this? The fool. This is the unteachable, the egotistical. By the way, if you're only thinking about them, you're not paying attention. This could be you. This could be you. And it's important to ask, is this me? Am I this person? The unteachable, the egotistical, the passive-aggressive that loves to be right all the time. They never apologize, and they always think they're the smartest person in the room. Anybody? They have no self-awareness. They overestimate their ability. They always think they can do anything and they're the best at anything. You ever met anyone like that? I can do that. I'm the best at that. Whatever it is, I can do it. These are people with very little self-awareness, and they're walking the fool's walk. They're walking the life as a fool. Let's see. Can't stop talking about yourself. Downplay the accomplishment of others. Prone to emotional outbursts. You pay no attention to what it's like on the other side of you. Like whenever people tell you, well, listen, you were really abrasive right then. And you're like, no, I wasn't. Well, you're not being very self-aware. You made them feel bad when you said that. No, I didn't. Zero self-awareness. And you can't grow. You can't mature if you have the answer to every question. You cannot be responsible if you're not willing to take responsibility for the shortcomings that are happening in your life and in your marriage and through your friendships. So don't be the fool and don't hang out with people like this. Can they be on the periphery of your life? Yes. You need to have influence and try to help them, but they can't be in that inner circle. Your inner circle needs to be people who fit qualifications that guide us and lift us and encourage us, not those that could drag us down. Well, what's another version? So we got the wicked or the evil, we got the fool, we also got angry, the angry person. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered. And a lot of times when you're an angry person, you don't know it. You can't see that in the mirror very quickly. Sometimes somebody has to tell you, and then when they tell you, you get angry. You don't call it anger. You say you're frustrated. I'm just really frustrated. But really, your whole life is in the yellow. Like if you got a tachometer, for you it would be this way: green, yellow, and then in the red, when that engine's just revving red hot, and you find that you're always in the yellow, and it takes the littlest thing to just push you into the red. That might be an anger issue that you should look at, that you should go see somebody about, see a professional about, talking about what it is that's causing this constant burning that lets you go over the top too much. And it will hinder you from having close relationships with anybody, because no one wants to be friends with somebody who's hot-tempered and angry all the time, the angry. Or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. You ever notice that the closer you get to somebody, the more you start mimicking their characteristics and their personality? He's like, listen, don't hang out with people who have these negative. You'll end up becoming like that. You'll be angry over the smallest, littlest thing. Remember when you first started in the relationship and you're like, why are you angry at that? That's something so small. Now you're a year or two in and you get just as angry over something just as small. It can become a part of us, and we don't need to do that. Keep it at bay. By the way, fear and anger are cousins. If you find yourself angry, it's probably because you're scared of something. And that makes you angry because you're like, you're not going to tell me what I'm scared of. You're scared of losing control. When you're scared of losing control over a situation, it makes you angry. And so the answer to this is an act of surrender. I'm surrendering this over to my Heavenly Father. And you won't do it in one try. It's going to be a surrender, and then a surrender, and then a surrender, and it may be a surrender for the rest of your life. Every minute of every day, this is yours, God, it is not mine. I don't want to have control over it. You have control over it. And you'll notice that your anger will go down as you surrender control over everything to Him. Another person that we need to avoid is the excessive person, the one who goes to excess. Listen, my son, and be wise and set your heart on the right path. Do not join those who drink too much wine or gorge themselves on meat. He doesn't say don't hang out with people who drink wine. He doesn't say don't hang out with people who eat good. Don't hang out with people who drink too much wine or gorge themselves on meat. Why? For drunkards and gluttons are poor, and drowsiness clothes them in rags. In the Old Testament, this was a description used of people who had zero ambition for their life. Oh, they're just a drunkard and a glutton. It's just the words they would use. That's just a drunkard and a glutton. If you could pin those two things on somebody, you knew that they were irresponsible, did not care about anyone else around them. They were not self-aware. They didn't care about how their life affected other people because they had no discipline. Zero self-control. And these are people you need to stay away from. Can they be on the periphery as you're trying to lead them, maybe evangelize, maybe talk to them, maybe be there for them? Yes, but they can't be in that inner circle. What we're learning here is, and by the way, if this is you will never be in someone's inner circle if this is all you do and all you think about. Because you're not going to be able to lift anyone up. And so we have to be looking at this from both perspectives. Am I that as someone? And this is a lack of self-control, and it could be in any area. It doesn't have to just be these two things, but what about talking? Do you have excess? Do you talk too much? Do you waste time? Do you waste money? These are all symptoms of a bigger problem. And you can be a great friend without participating in these things. You don't have to go down that road that every person does. So the person of excess is someone to not let into that inner circle. And then the person who's constantly discontented, this person, they just can't, they're always looking for what's next or what's better, or if God would, or if they would, then it's that I'm always feeling cheated. And they're just constantly discontented with life. This person they're not seeing God rightly. And what they're doing is they're in their own little world and everything revolves around them, and egotistical, maniacal. It's this just everything is only and totally about me scenario. And that is not healthy to be in a friendship. This is what you should be listening for. This is someone who is content in God. They will say this: keep falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread, God. I want to be dependent on you for all things. I don't need more. I don't need less. Just enough. I want to be dependent on you for every single thing. I am content right where I am. I don't need more or less. And then he continues with this. Otherwise, if I know what I'm capable of, God, and so I don't want to become that, so I want just enough. Otherwise, I may have too much, and I'll disown you and say, who is the Lord? I don't need the Lord. I mean, look at what I've got. I made it all by myself. I don't need you. Or I may become poor and steal and then dishonor your name. And so you want to be with the person who says these kind of things. I'm content with what I have. I don't need more. I don't need less. You want to avoid the person that is discontent with everything. And no one ever meets their needs. And no one's here for me. They're in a spot. They need help, but you might not be the one that needs to be the closest. You can be on the periphery. You can help them. You can guide them. You should. We're called to. But we can't let them into that inner part of our life. There's things going on there. So that's what to avoid. Now let's talk about what to become. Let's look at it from the positive side. What are some things that I should become? All right, so jumping into Proverbs again. You should be safe. You should be a safe friend. Do not plot harm against your neighbor who lives trustfully near you. They trust you, but what are you doing? What are you doing what's your side of the relationship? Are you behaving in a trustworthy manner in that relationship? Or are you plotting harm against them? Are you making sure that everyone knows the kind of person they really are? Or are you keeping them honest, even though everyone else looks deceived? You're making sure that, I know, he's a good guy, but she's a great mom, but let me tell you, that's not trustworthy. That's not a safe space for people when they're trying to confide or when they're hurt. So you need to be a safe place for people where you're not going to use anything against them. You're not going to hurt them. Here's another one that kind of goes along with the same thing. You need to be loyal. A loyal friend. A loyal friend. Whoever would foster love covers over an offense. That's an interesting thought. Covers over an offense? You mean like hides it? No. Whoever would foster love covers over an offense, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends. Let me tell you where I see this a lot. It's everywhere, but when you see this in a marriage, it is cancer in a marriage. When a husband or a wife goes to the spouse and they say, listen, I know I messed that up and I'm so sorry. Can we start over? And you say yes, and you say, I forgive you. And then you bring it up, and you bring it up, and you bring it up, and you bring it up. You're slowly destroying the relationship. You can never, ever, ever bring it up again. When someone makes it right, when someone makes an amends, when someone comes to you and says, I messed this up, I'm so sorry I hurt you, I vow to never do it again, then you cover over that offense. It never existed. It's gone. We're never talking about it again. This is what a healthy relationship looks like. You don't need to keep bringing it up over and over again. Anyone who's ever been in a relationship like this knows exactly what this feels like. And it does not feel like love. It feels like judgment. It feels like condemnation. It feels like I'm living with somebody who just wants what's worst for me, not what's best for me. And so you can't do this. When to be a good friend, when they make it right, it's buried, never to be brought up again. You keep repeating it over and over again. Well, I find it hard to trust you because it's like, whoa, I thought we handled that. You can't keep doing that. You can't keep bringing it up. Loyal. Here's another one. 26:20. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. Without a gossip, a person. Without a gossiping person, a quarrel dies down. Now, that seems really obvious. And it's been in there the whole time. But man alive. It's for some reason, everyone is really good at this. We're amazing at this. And we'll disguise it as other things, prayer requests or whatever. But someone comes and tells us something that they're confiding in us, and they no sooner get out the door that we call the person that's closer to us than they are, and we tell them what they just told us. It's like, what? You're not loyal. We can't ever do that. If someone is a closer friend to us than we are to them, we still have to respect the relationship, and we don't need to gossip about it. Because it's a fire. It's just like without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. And this applies this is in your relationships, this is in your work, this is in church. Every one of us can get up here and tell a story about how this destroyed something. Church you used to go to, a marriage you used to be in, people that talked about other people, and it just ripped it apart. So be loyal, be loyal, be loyal. What's another thing we should become? We should become generous. Proverbs 3:27, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to act. Be a generous friend. If you have it and they need it, give it to them. Whatever it is. I love this concept. I hate this concept. I love it and I hate it because I am not good at being generous. I want to be. I want to be. One of my prayers is, God, I'm not generous, but I want to be generous. So could you help me start to be generous? Because I want to be. And so generosity is very difficult for me, especially in this regard. Because in my mind, I'm kind of like, I worked really hard for that. And I'm just going to give it to you to destroy. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. And Proverbs is like, this is what you do. You help somebody in need. I mean, just to be real practical, if there's somebody in North Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina right now, and you know who they are and they're hurting from what just happened, if you have it, you should give it, whatever it is. If you have the power to do something, you should do it, whatever it is. You don't need to ask God, well, God, should I? Yes. This is a yes answer. You don't need to ask the question. You don't need to pray about it. We should do it. We should help out people. He says also in Proverbs 3:28, do not say to your neighbor, come back tomorrow and I'll give it to you, when you already have it with you. Whatever it is, give it. This is that concept of, well, ask me again tomorrow because maybe you won't ask. So, hey, you know what? My schedule, hey, would you call me back later? And you're hoping that they don't, and you're hoping that it goes away. And he's like, no, don't do that because it's important to them. And if it's important to them, it should be important to you. And so if you have it and they need it, go ahead and give it to them. And then I love this one because we'll mess this one up if we're not careful. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. And you know what our mind automatically goes to is like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I know what that says, Pastor. What it says is a generous person will prosper because God will make them prosper. He's going to give them stuff. He's going to bless them if they bless others. That's what that means. And if I refresh other people, then God's going to refresh me. That's not what it says. We're just making that up. We're just reading that in there. That might happen, but what I know for sure happens is that when a generous person is generous to another person, the chances are that other person is going to be generous to the generous person. You know how I find it very hard to be generous to? Selfish people. Just me? I mean, this is really quiet. Okay, you ask something from me once, no problem. You ask the same thing twice, and you ask it a third time, and it's like, no. Because you haven't done anything for me, but you want me to do the same thing for you? Like, I don't even understand this concept. It's very hard to receive generosity when you're not a generous person. If you're generous, generosity comes back to you. Because people are like, hey, they help me out. We're going to help them out. They help me out. We're going to help them out. But if you're selfish and you never do anything, don't be surprised. This is just like a life thing. Don't super spiritualize this. If you're selfish, expect selfishness. But if you're generous, expect generosity. It seems to happen that way a lot. So, generosity. Be a generous person. And generosity is contagious, by the way. You have friends that are going to watch you be generous, and they're going to be like, how did you do that? How come? How is that even possible? I know how much you make. How are you able to do that? And then it opens up the door for you to tell a story about how amazing God is and why you tithe and why you give and why you help that person that no one else helped. And you get to spread that generosity, and it plants seeds in other people's lives. Be a generous friend. Next. Healthy boundaries. I love this expression here. Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house, too much of you, and they're going to hate you. Everyone can only handle so much of somebody else. I mean, come on. Let's just be real. And some people, man, is like bite-sized pieces, man. Like I can take them 5 minutes at a time. And then there's other people, I can be around them forever, okay? But what he's saying is just be aware. Be self-aware enough to know. Well, I've said from here that if in groups, you want people in your life that have refrigerator rights. You remember saying, like, they can go in your room, they can open your fridge. You remember that? Okay. It's true. But you eat all my food, I'm kicking you out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't come every day. Like, there's boundaries. You got to set up boundaries with people in your life. And when it's a true friend, when it's a real friend, when it's that friend you can go the last 10% with, then you can honestly call them up and say, listen, I need a break. I need a couple of days. Okay, I need some time to read Scripture and pray. I need a break. So if we could just take a break for 72 hours, you know. Because here's the thing that we need to be aware of. If you're not careful, you'll become codependent. And you may even be codependent on somebody else. And this is a very dangerous place to be. And it's taxing to the other person when you treat someone and you don't have healthy boundaries. So how do you know? All right. If you text them and they don't text you in 3 hours and your anxiety goes up, that's codependency. That is an unhealthy response to a friendship. You shouldn't feel that way. And you should ask yourself, why? Why do I feel that way? How come if they leave me on red after 3 hours, I get an emotional response to words on a screen? Words on a screen should not affect us that much. if their mood affects your day, codependency. Why should their mood affect your day? If that's true, you need to ask yourself, what's going on in here that I'm allowing them to have that much effect on my life? That's a codependent relationship, and there needs to be boundaries around what that looks like. Very, very, very healthy to set up boundaries. Don't abuse it. If you feel like they have to check in with you about everything, if you're constantly asking them what they're thinking about or what they're doing, these are unhealthy things. Now, in a marriage, there may be times, seasons to have that kind of relationship if there's been a break of trust. But in friendships, this is codependency and something to look out for. You do not want to be that way. You need to have healthy boundaries in your friendships. Being able to have that difficult conversation and correct when correction is necessary. And then this is the last one for what you need to become. When we're talking about that close-knit people, like the 2 or 3 or maybe even 1, I mean, definitely your spouse, but then maybe 1 or 2 others, that close-knit group of friends, it needs to be a Jesus follower. And if it needs to be someone who's following after Jesus even more intensely than you are. Because you need someone who's going to encourage you and lift you up and not drag you down. This can be very taxing when you... Okay, let me go this route. Some of you in the room are natural helpers. You find it within you to go and be for everyone else. And your cup is empty because you're constantly giving out to everyone else. You haven't set up healthy boundaries and you're allowing them to drain you dry. And when you do that, you don't have enough for anyone or anything else, especially those closest to you. You end up letting them be the sacrifice because you're giving out to everyone else. You need to be very, very, very careful with that. That is not a healthy relationship. You need to have as many people pouring into your life as you have people drawing from your life. If you don't, you'll end up in a deficit. You'll end up hurting you and those closest to you. It's good that you're a helper. That's a gift from God for you to be able to do that. But it needs to be offset by people who are pouring life into you. Jesus followers, you need to be one, and those that are in your inner circle need to be one. Proverbs 8:35 and 36 says, "For those who find me, God, find life and receive favor from the Lord. But those who fail to find me harm themselves. All who hate me love death." Find someone who is for life. Find someone who is for Jesus. Find someone who is living the Christian life. Jesus tells us many, many examples of what good friendship is. I'll mention 2 quickly. Number 1, we're not going to go into the story. You can look it up for yourself. But there's this amazing story with a guy who was born paralyzed. He can't move. And his friends say, "We heard about a guy. And this guy is healing people. I don't know if we can get you to him, but we're going to try." And so this guy's laying on a mat. He can't move. The 4 guys, we think it's 4 guys pick him up and carry the mat to Jesus. They go to the house, and the house is slammed full. They can't even get anywhere near Jesus because people are pouring out the door. There's people hanging out windows. They can't get to Jesus because the house is so full. So they're like, "All right, we'll find another way." And they climb up on the house that's built into the side of this little sandy, rocky, whatever area, and it's got a roof on it that's thatched, and they can pull it off. And so they get up on top of the roof, and they start tearing the roof apart. And Jesus is in there, and he's teaching, and all of a sudden, dust particles start falling into the lights, and, hay or whatever starts falling down, and everyone looks up, and a beam of light shines through into the house, and they just keep seeing hands tear open a hole, and all of a sudden, a guy on a cot is being lowered into this room. And Jesus healed him. But he didn't heal him because of his faith. He healed them because of the faith of his friends. You need friends like that. You need to be a friend like that. A friend that can have faith when your other person doesn't have any. They are in a pit of despair. They lost someone. They're grieving. They're in a place where they haven't heard from God in months and they don't know what else to do. You need to be that friend that takes them to Jesus because they can't walk anymore. You need to be that. And you need people like that in your life. And then he also says in John 15, because Jesus is the perfect example of every single thing we ever talk about, "My command is this, I want you to love each other as I have loved you." That's a tall order, Jesus. You want us to love people, our friends, everyone around us the way that that's right. I want you to love others the way that I've loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that to lay down your life for one's friends. To lay down your life. And then he went on to do exactly that. And he calls everyone who follows him his friend. Now, laying down one's life is like the fullest extent, but Maybe you won't have to lay down your life, but you probably have to lay down something if you're going to be a good friend. Maybe you got to lay down your reputation. Maybe you got to lay down commitment to something that's a time waster in order to give it over to somebody that matters. But we need to figure out what this is, and we need to be willing to lay down our life for our friends. And he says, you are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant doesn't know his master's business. But you guys know all my business. You know everything there is to know about why I'm here, what I'm doing. I've told you everything. So because of that, I have called you friends. Because everything that I've learned from my Father, I have made known to you. So a few questions as we end. Number one, is your life full of people that give you life? Is your life full of people that give you life? Are they life-giving people? Or are you only surrounding yourself with people that drain you dry? The problem with that is twofold. Number one, you won't have enough for you or for anyone else, and it will hurt other relationships. But here's the other thing I want you to be aware of. Do you do this? Do you perhaps do this because you like to brag about the fact that you do it? Let me tell you how many people I helped today. Let me tell you what I did this week. Let me tell you about so-and-so and what I did and how I helped and what I did and how I helped and what I did and how I helped. Very dangerous place to be. Very self-centered, egotistical, everything is about you, and you're finding your value in helping other people. Not healthy either. Find people who fill your cup. So, what you don't want to do is pretend there's a cup in my hand, and you get people in your life, and they fill it up to the brim, and then what do? You dump it out, and you help someone else. Then you go to people, they fill up, and then you dump it out on somebody else. That will eventually wear you out. The better illustration of what you should do, knock the bottom out of the cup so that it's just a cylinder, and you place it into a river. And what you have is constant in and out, constant flow, constant flow. That is the life of the believer. Constantly being filled by the Holy Spirit and constantly being filled by those around us so that we can constantly pour out to others at an even rate. A balanced life of helping others. Is your life full of people that give you life? If not, you need to get some. Make it an ambition to find some life-giving people and put them into your life. It's important. Second question. Are you a person that gives life to others, or are you the one that sucks people dry? How do you know this? Are you the center of every conversation? Do you talk more than they do every time you're together? You might be the one that is draining the relationship. Is everything only and totally about you? Are you the one with all the problems? Are you in a relationship where they never tell you their problems? Might be because they already know you're a project. You're not here for me. I'm here for you. And so go ahead and lay it all on me, and I'll give you my advice that you won't take, and I'll be here right next time when you ask me to do it again. So go ahead. So are you a life-giving person, or are you the one that is draining others in the friendship? Last one, are you willing to ask? Are you willing to ask, what is it like on the other side of me? Are you willing to go to coffee with somebody and sit them across the table from you and say, listen, I'm totally aware of the fact that I behave in ways that I shouldn't and I say things that I shouldn't. Can you tell me where I have failed you as a friend? What is something I said or did that I shouldn't have said or did? How am I as a mom? You're around me a lot. Do I treat my kids the way Jesus would treat my kids? Am I a good dad? Am I a good husband? Look them in the eye and ask them, what is it like on the other side of me? Am I life-giving? Am I affirming? Am I encouraging? Am I showing the fruit of the Holy Spirit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control? Do you see Jesus in me? These are the questions self-aware, mature, responsible people ask. Because here's the deal. Jesus took responsibility for your irresponsibility. And Jesus took responsibility for my irresponsibility. And because of that, we can not only have life, but we can have an abundant, eternal life. And there are those around you who need you because they're being irresponsible. And they need someone responsible in their life. And there's going to be times when you're irresponsible and you need a responsible person in your life. So be a good friend. Find good friends. Become somebody that can be trustworthy and loving and caring to others. And your life will be full. And you'll experience an abundance you didn't even know possible. And all those relationships will look a whole lot like Jesus. That we're able to lay down our life for our friends. Let's pray. Father, thank you.